right, you ready, Pop?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right, guys, you ready to rock and roll? Let's go ahead and start. Let's kick it off with the cheers to the Layover podcast.
Cheers.
Episode 3?
Episode 3.
3A. Is that for Han? You're 3A or Jarrett's 3A?
There you go. Whatever you want me to fall in the pecking order.
All right, guys, we are so happy to have you. Thank you so much for joining us here. We have Han and Jarrett, and we're going to do some quick intros of who the hell you are, and then let's get into the good stuff. So let's kick it off. Han, tell us who the hell you are.
First off, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of this. My name is Han Pak, and I work with Mead & Hunt, and I'm a technology market leader for the company.
Oh, fancy.
Very fancy. I'm Jarrett Morgan. Also very excited to be here. Technology market leader as well at Mead & Hunt. And don't ask us what that means, because it means a lot of different things.
Do you know what it means? That's the main question.
Yes, absolutely. I know what it means. We'll just go with that.
Trick question, right? Awesome. And we already know you, Pat.
Yeah, actually, no need to introduce me, but I'm so happy you guys made time to come to Atlanta to record with us. This is awesome, and I can't wait. We have so much to talk about that we actually have to make 2 episodes on this, and I cannot wait to dive into it.
Don't disappoint, gentlemen. Pressure's on. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Awesome.
Pause.
Yeah, right? No, let's cut that. No, let's start off with the career path, right? So a part of the Layover podcast is really understanding everyone's journey. And we don't want the cookie cutter, I worked in an airport and this was great. We want the real stuff of like, you know what, it was late nights. It was hard at times. How did you get to where you are? And unfiltered, that's what the bourbon's for. That's why we like to liquor you up before you start talking. But why don't you start, Han? Just tell us how you got to where you are and start off from the very beginning, because you've got an interesting journey.
And Han, let's just also start with your full name, because you disclosed that.
I did. So I will start. This is going to be part of the story, but I'll go through it now. So my full name is Han Pak.
Okay.
And so the Han Mi actually translates to Korean American. And the reason why my parents gave me that name was because I was conceived in Korea and born in America.
What happened in Korea?
I don't know. I feel like you guys can figure that one out. If not, I'm sure we can.
Rated R podcast.
Yeah, this just completely changed ratings.
I feel like there's probably a YouTube video that we could probably...
Absolutely. I mean, it's the same reason how I'm the Spanish guy named Patrick. Figure that one out, right? Born on St. Patrick's Day from New Hampshire, right? So figure that one out, right? But anyways, go ahead.
Wait, you're Spanish? I didn't know that.
Everyone thinks he's
Boom,
Italian or
bombshells.
something.
We'll edit that in, some bombshells going in there.
I am not Spanish.
We're just good
Nor
old
Korean.
Southern. All right, well, Han, tell us your story.
All right, so so when you first invited us and kind of gave us the format for the show and everything, it really got me thinking, what part of my journey did I really want to tell you guys? Yeah. And so after giving it some thought, I realized that I really need to kind of go to the beginning.
Absolutely.
And so when I say the beginning, I mean talking about when my parents basically immigrated to the States. So, obviously, back then, people heard of the American dream and all those other things. And so that was why my parents came to the States. And for them, in terms of trying to be successful and all the other things they want to do here in the U.S., they kind of created their own little path when they came here, or had a plan for what they wanted to do. And so my parents got their first job when they were here, basically. And so my dad was a truck driver, and my mom was worked in a factory, basically. So that was kind of like where I started learning things from them as I got older with their jobs and stuff. So they started teaching me things, what it means to be an immigrant moving to America. We're trying to do the American dream. And so they started prepping me with a lot of these thoughts along the way and stuff like that. And so as actually, I probably should give you a little background on my parents, because this actually is one of all the things that I learned growing up is kind of part of who they are. So, for instance, my mom was the oldest child in her family. Okay. So, and I don't know how much you guys know about Korean dynamics, but as the oldest daughter, she had a lot of responsibility for the family and stuff like that.
Is that based on a female role or just in general the oldest?
So the oldest female role, because the oldest son role is a whole other thing, which is what I was, which I would definitely get into.
Gotcha.
As part of that as well. So there are certain things that my mom taught me as being the oldest female. So, and things that that she would have liked to have happened for herself, basically, that she wanted to happen for me as from growing up in the States and everything like that. So having that role, she would try to nurture. Well, actually, yeah. So part of the Korean woman or role is to nurture the kids and things like that. So that was what she did for me, basically. So when I would want to do something, she would basically say, "You can do whatever you want. You know, if you want to do this." Like she always supported all the things that
Mama boy. We knew it. Mama's
you know what?
boy.
I totally was. Not gonna lie, I was total mama's boy.
Nobody is
comes
surprised
out.
by that.
I'm waiting for the surprise of the story.
And so the other side was my father, and so he was the fourth in the family, 4th out of 5. So apparently he caused a lot of trouble and stuff like that. And so when I was growing up, he's like, I don't mind that you get in trouble, but still get good grades and all that other stuff. And but there was kind of also a tougher side to him as well, because again, you guys probably wouldn't know this, and this is maybe unique to Korean culture, but the guys had a certain role and women had a certain role.
Right.
So my dad was always like, I need to teach you to be a man, and it was always like, you need to be a man and all this other stuff. And so to kind of put more light into that, my dad was he went to Vietnam at 18. He was Korean Special Forces,
wow.
So he was kind of a hard ass. I mean, at times, and especially with me being the oldest, and I'll get into what that means for me and my family as well. But yeah, so with my dad, all the things, he was always hard on me because he was, again, trying to make me a man. And I remember even when I was getting to be of college age, in high school and stuff, he kept telling me, he's like, maybe you should enlist in the Army. And I'm like, I don't think so, Dad. I was like, why would I?
Oh man, Han Pak in the Army.
Can you imagine that shit?
Oh my god.
Weren't you supposed to go in the Army?
Yeah, so my family's same kind of type dynamic, right? And my brother did go into the Navy and had a successful career, retired. My dad, he served in the Marines. And then there's me, and they're like, you should join the Army. And I was like, there's nothing about me that says Army.
No.
So they allow Jordan sneakers.
I like fashion and electric cars, apparently. And so I couldn't join that. I was like, today, that's a joke on the electric cars. We were just talking about that today. But no, I mean, it's funny how I hear the Korean heritage, Korean household, it aligns a lot with kind of my household being Hispanic. It was the same way, right? It was built to be, you can get in trouble, right? But your grades better not drop, right?
Yeah.
And education is put forth in front of everything else, right?
Yep.
Aspect of it. So, anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. And so this was a common theme for my father, and you've kind of heard my mother's side of it. And I was thankful that he didn't push me because and I don't know if you guys know this, military service is mandatory in Korea and stuff like that. So it's normal for the guys to go in the military and then go to college. So my dad, as an immigrant, not really understanding America, is like, maybe you should think about doing that. And I'm like, no. I'm like, and this is where I was like, I'm glad you guys have integrated to America, so I don't have to go into the military. And then, I would make comments like, you want a better life for me, right? You don't want me to do all these things.
Wow, pulling in that guilt trip
I
there.
think everybody's better off with Han Pak not in the military.
America's
I
safer.
feel like I would have been a good soldier.
I feel like you would not have been a good soldier.
I feel like he would have been calculating things for 2 hours. It would have been too late. That's what I was thinking. But anyways.
So here, that's kind of the common theme with my parents and stuff like that. So you kind of get a general idea for them. So, fast forward through the years. Oh, actually, got to talk about this part.
And for my 7th birthday party, I received.
I love it though.
Come on, Han.
We get to learn
We only
about
have
it.
33 more minutes.
I got a toy gun. No hands to join the
This is
military.
Han's therapy session.
Oh, it is. I'm letting it all out right now.
He's on the couch. He's like, let me tell you about it.
We
No,
have Kleenex. I'm sorry. We need some Kleenex.
No kidding. Keep going. Keep going. This is awesome.
So I will fast forward soon. I promise you. But I remember. So this is my parents as I was growing older, and this is I love talking about this part too, because this kind of shows my path in choosing what I wanted to be and stuff like that as I grew up. And I said my father was his first job was a truck driver when he moved over here, and so I mentioned that to Jarrett, and we both discovered we both want to be truck drivers growing up.
That is beautiful.
And we're both qualified to be truck drivers.
Well, what a nice little way to connect there. I like it.
Was that the icebreaker?
What did you want to be when you grow up? And you guys both just were like, truck
We
driver.
went truck driver at the same time. Wow!
Me too.
Bro, you like Max? So do I.
bonded over that. Oh goodness. So, but and then after that, after so long, I really got into and I heard your podcast before. I actually want to be an astronaut, and there's a reason behind that. So, when I was growing up, I don't know if you guys watched Star Trek. I was a closeted Trekkie back then, which wasn't cool, but now apparently, I mean,
it's a cool thing.
It's a cool thing now, right?
It was always cool. It was just
Jarrett's
it was just misunderstood.
It's not cool.
It's still cool.
It's not cool. Clearly, Star Wars.
I'm gonna hold. People don't know who you are yet, so I'm gonna hold back on that comment of my rebuttal to that. But we'll let the Star Trek stuff go. It is cool, by the way.
Yes, I mean, I loved all of it. So, but so that I kind of, and that's actually will lead into my college years as to what I ended up doing. But I have to talk about some.
Gee, we're still not in college.
I know.
No, you guys stop being bullies.
Yes.
I love it.
That's right. Thank you, Tracy. So, anyways, after that, my parents started having me work young, basically. So with their jobs and everything. So one of the things they wanted to achieve was they wanted to own their own business. So after enough time, my dad working as a truck driver, my mom working in the factory and stuff like that, they saved up enough money to buy their first store.
Wow.
So they bought their first store, started learning what that business is like, started working that, and then they did pretty well with that, and then they basically bought their second store and moved up in size and stuff like that. And so that was where I started coming into play because I got older, and they felt I was old enough to start working in the store and stuff like that. And so, and mind you, this was when I love to tell this because people don't believe it, but I was literally 11 years old. And, nowadays people are like, that's
child labor.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
So we're gonna pause the story there because I had so many jokes leading up to it, but I didn't know what was fair game until he said I was 11.
It's all fair.
It's
Like
all
I
fair.
was shaking in my chair. Like I was like, I have to get these jokes out. I don't know what to do. I was gonna text them to myself. Just to get them out.
I want to hear at least one of them.
All right. Well, the first joke was gonna be when you said, I started working. I was like, man, I really hope we got to high school by now.
But the good news, it was only 20 hours a day.
Yeah. I mean, it was 4 hours of study.
Oh my
Are you
gosh.
not understanding my strategy? I'm hoping for a second punch.
There you
This is
go.
what I'm aiming for right now.
Curious enough. So you worked at your parents' store at 11.
Yes. So I was 11,
Okay.
and so I started with basically stocking the shelves.
Okay.
And then so once I did that pretty well, then I started learning how to run the cash register.
You moved your way up.
I was working my way up, and let me tell you, cash register. I didn't realize what a nerve-wracking position it is.
Dude, I know
think-
this.
People. I didn't realize that people would try and actually cheat a child, and so my parents had to teach me how to deal with.
I mean, you
things
are from Philly, right? Is that where you?
So-
So let's just make sure we.
Wait a
Cheating
minute.
is a normal thing there.
Philadelphia people would steal children?
What, Mark?
So I actually grew up in York, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Philadelphia, depending
Still
on traffic.
Philly.
It's not though because it's literally Cowtown. I shouldn't say that. Small town,
Wow,
Pennsylvania.
he just almost
No.
read it
Wait,
himself.
wait. You grew up in York, you moved to. Are we going to have to hear the whole story of how you went from
Jared's
York?
like, I won't have to talk at all.
Well, clearly this is the Han Pak episode.
That's actually my
3B
favorite-
will be Jarrett because I'm not going to get to say a damn thing.
Continue.
Don't worry, I'll start speeding it up. No, I won't.
Nobody believes that.
So I was working my way up, and I didn't realize that was what I was doing because that's what my parents basically had me doing. So I went from stocking shelves to work in the register, and then going to work the meat counter, right? Because I had to be old enough to do the meat slicer and use
Of course,
knives
that's
and
a
all this
dangerous
other
game.
stuff. So I didn't realize this. My parents were showing me all the different parts of the business, basically, and so
Yeah.
they wanted me to understand all parts of the business. And so by the time I hit high school, basically, see, I'm moving now. I'm getting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I fell asleep. You woke me up.
So wait a minute. I do have a question part of your story. So you said that you had to learn all aspects of the business, and the last thing you learned was the knives and the cutting the meat, and you just got to high school.
Right. So we're still like 14, 15 when we're.
Playing with knives.
That does not sound legal or safe.
I mean, there were some other things, but I figured you guys want me to speed it up a little bit.
No,
right?
that's
So.
There was
I think we've
no.
heard all the things. But continue.
So by the time I'm in high school, so now I'm being taught how to order things, how to run the business, how to manage the money, and so literally, my parents, and I'm sure this is probably part of their grand plan. They were like, we can go on vacation now.
Ooh.
And so I didn't realize what that meant. I'm like, oh man, so they go in. I'm thinking, oh cool, I'll run stuff, right? I did not realize how much responsibility that was going to be until I actually started doing it.
But you learned so much up until that point.
I really did, and I didn't realize what I had learned.
So your parents were teaching you indirectly without knowing that you were actually learning how to run an entire business.
Yes, exactly. And so, I mean, it was kind of cool to know by the time I was in high school, like, if they weren't here, like, I could run all this stuff. Because by this point in time, they've got several stores, we had a laundromat, and so, like, I'm running all this stuff. And so now I'm dealing with all of the employees and the locations and stuff like that.
The hardest part.
And boy, that was, and yeah, dealing with employees as a high school kid, because they didn't respect me at all. They're like, I don't care if you're my boss's kids, whatever, like, he's still just a kid. So,
absolutely.
oh my goodness. So, well, a lot of lessons learned with that basically. But I will say, you guys ever want to open up a store? I can do it right now. If you guys want to do that. That stuff was ingrained into my head. I know how to open, run, and start stores.
I almost felt like Jarrett was going to whip out a businessman's plan. He's back on it for a while. Like, if this shit doesn't work out, there's always plan B.
That's right,
for a store.
And I think always been driving trouble. But now I think we're going to open a store.
Absolutely.
Grocery store, corner store, whatever you want to do. Whatever.
So how did you go from learning all those work ethics, everything that your parents taught you, obviously work hard, join the military, all those things, working through that, all that discipline, because I'm sure there was discipline within all that aspect of it, and how did you convert that over to now as an adult? And I don't want to fast forward through your college years because I'm sure that's going to take 4 episodes. But learning everything that you learned from your father, your mother, running a business, and seeing, I also come from kind of first, second generation immigrants that came here, seeing all that hard work, that dedication. How do you then translate that into now you going into your profession and what you're trying to do?
Yes, and again, this is kind of how all this builds into kind of where I am today. But you mentioned something that I also wanted to talk about was the whole working hard part. Mm-hmm. My goodness, my parents coming from Korea, they're used to working a certain way. They come to the States, they want to get to the American dream. And so it's like, if you need to work 6 days a week, 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, you do what you have to do, right? And I'm sitting here thinking, because like when I was running my parents' business, like those were like 14-hour days for me. So going from one location to the next. Mm-hmm. I'd come home, be tired, and go to bed, and wake up early and go run the business. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. And it's definitely not fun, but I mean, it was very educational.
And how old were you during this? Sorry.
7.
No, he was 11. He's running the store. He has 47 employees.
Covering payroll, checking I-9s, making sure everything's legit.
Hey, it's a legitimate question. Were you in high school still during this phase or college? Sorry.
Wait, when
you're running all the stores.
Oh no, I was in high school when I did that.
So Tracy, I mean, how many 7-year-olds in college?
The story's so long, Han didn't even remember what he said.
Look, and boy, like when I was in college, though, I would come home for the summer, right?
Right.
Until I got smart and started telling my parents, I need to take some summer classes. But like before I smartened up, like I worked the whole summer. Yeah. It was like my parents' chance to go on vacation because they knew that they could trust me to basically run a business and stuff like that.
Family business.
But so to get back to your comment, Patrick, the idea of working hard, I realized with our generation that it's when it started was basically work smarter, not harder, right? And so I started thinking about these things because while I enjoyed learning all this stuff that my parents taught me, I told myself, like, I don't want to be working 7 days a week for 14-hour days. And
that wasn't
I mean, it was totally not. And, it was definitely hard for my parents because they thought that I would, and I want to get into some of this other stuff, but maybe not for this episode. Because
episode C, 3C.
The podcast that you changed. Han's bio.
Look, you know what?
No, you were nailing it.
There are so many things that I could talk about.
No, absolutely.
This is so interesting, though. It really is.
You know what? You're the new co-host.
More interesting than Patrick.
You guys are going to have to add a little language at the beginning of this podcast. Please skip ahead to 20 minutes or so into it.
No, you're nailing it.
Oh, goodness gracious. But, where were we?
We don't know. We have no idea.
No, you were learning. You learned
Sixth grade.
You learned the whole system, and you didn't want to work that hard.
Yes, so this started making me think, like, what do I want to do, basically? You know, what are the things? So it's funny because during this time, as all Asian parents do, and if you watch, like, I just recently watched a stand-up with Ronnie Chang, and I don't know if you know guys, and so he started doing this little bit about this. I'm like, that was totally me growing up, because like Asian parents back then, there were certain jobs that they thought that kids should have, that they wanted the kids to have, which was basically being a doctor, being a lawyer, and then engineer got thrown in there, but it was really just doctor. Those were the
just only
prestigious,
yes.
But then I angled for engineering, so this kind of stemmed from my astronaut days because of that.
Well, astronaut dreams.
Right,
dreams.
Good correction. Good
You gave yourself quite the bump in your career.
You're just setting these up now, and we're just dunking these on the other side. So.
My days as an astronaut were very difficult. Well, to be fair, it's not as a stretch as Patrick wanting to be an astronaut. So
I did honestly. Mine wasn't even education. Mine was I just failed the psychological test. Like there's no way.
No shock there.
No, they're like absolutely not.
Yeah.
They're like you're getting as close to this building as the parking lot, and maybe.
I wouldn't even allow that.
I don't think
cars and
to be honest with you, I think I went on a school field trip, and I don't think they even let me on a field trip. And I was just a kid.
Makes sense.
But
you went through your astronaut days.
Yeah, so I mean, by that point I realized
prior to walking on the moon.
This is post-moon.
Don't.
Do you even remember where you were?
Prior to your astronaut days.
Oh my goodness. Yes, prior. All right. So
Junior
I
year of
thought
high school.
I wanted to be an aerospace engineer at this point.
Right.
So I started taking some classes because I'm like, well, if I can't be the astronaut, I want to at least design the things that the astronauts are going to fly and stuff. Then I started going through the course. I'm like, oh my lord, you have to be kind of smart to do this kind of stuff.
I went through the same thing. I can't even make this up. I was like, I want to be part of something bigger, right?
Yep.
And I'm not getting emotional adding to it, but I do those tissues coming up soon. But I was like, I'm not going to be the one in the suit going to Mars or the moon, but I want to be the one who's on the rocket team. I want to be the one that screams Capcom Go. I wanted to be that person. Yeah. And then I couldn't be any of those people.
Guys, I'm so glad that this is recorded because if you could see Jarrett's face right now,
well, in all fairness, we haven't let him go yet, but I don't think he knows what a rocket is. He couldn't figure out the teams.
I think I should move so Han can lay down and you guys can have a therapy session here and cry.
We're going to go drink bourbon outside. Okay, continue, Han.
So after a year of taking classes, I was just like, oh, this is a bit much for me. So then I started, because I wanted to do the things that my parents, I didn't even get into the fact that, so I didn't mention the fact that I'm the oldest son.
Okay, yeah.
And so in a Korean family, the oldest son has certain, we'll say, responsibilities
roles,
and expectations.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, boy, I tell you, and this is partially my therapy session, I did not realize the things that they pounded in my head that made me want to listen to them. Like, I'm just like, well, I have to do this, I should be doing that, right? Or, my parents will be angry if I don't do this and things like that. But
and it's almost subconscious, like you don't realize it's happening when it's,
Yeah, it started when I was little up until, I mean, geez, even now, I mean, it still happens. I have to, well, anyways, that's a Thanksgiving.
You guys can use that to your advantage, gentlemen.
I have so many. Yeah, I'm writing things down. I'm texting Jarrett as we're going through this. I'm like, I bet he still builds rockets in his garage.
Are you talking about Jarrett or me?
I'm not the astronaut. You're the astronaut, Han.
Funny enough, I've done it with my daughter actually a little bit. But anyways, that's a whole nother story.
I'm sure we'll hear that one in a few minutes.
So anyway, I'm working my way through the engineering course, and I ended up at civil engineering because I told myself, I'm like, well, that's probably the least hardest one, right? Because I was like, I want to make my parents happy. I want to be a civil engineer. And then I realized, I'm like, you know what, I don't like this.
Yeah.
It's not for me. It's not clicking for me.
Sure.
And
what's your passion?
Yeah, and so then I was like, I've got to figure out something else. And then I remember, all right, I've got to drop this bomb on my parents. I'm like, I'm not going to be an engineer. I was like, it just isn't working for me.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so they're like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. I've got to figure that out. And so
supermodel.
Yeah. That was my side hustle.
I'm trying very hard not to say
You really want to keep it together.
yes, me too. I'm trying to behave.
All right, drink up, then.
So, and I'm sure every university has some version of this. Penn State has a really big, thick blue book that's all the majors that they offer. And I just remember, I'm like looking through this whole thing. I'm like, no. I'm like, maybe no. And then I came across MSIS, which for most universities, it's MIS. And for us at Penn State, that was Management, Science, and Information Systems.
And is that where you graduated from?
That is, yes.
It's a great school.
That's where I graduated from. That's the degree that I ended up graduating with. And then when I finally told my parents, oh God, this is a whole other thing too. So, but I'm sorry.
Did you tell your parents after you graduated, or did you tell them, wow, the change is happening?
Surprise!
So I
Are
said,
we going to call your parents now?
Yeah, bring it up, the non engineers.
They're here. The Poks are here. Welcome.
my parents were actually surprised I graduated too. But anyways.
So are we. I'm sure we're going to get to that.
No, we'll get there. Easy.
So anyways, I told my parents, I'm like, so I'm thinking about doing this MSIS thing. It's with computers and, it's the new thing, like,
Yep.
technology and all this stuff. And it's funny, like, I thought I was going to get so much pushback. Like, well, if you don't want to do that, then maybe you should think about going into law. And I was thinking, like, please don't push me down that road.
Oh,
But,
that's rough.
but so, and my parents were like, okay. And I'm like, really? I'm like, okay. And they're like, oh yeah, we just saw on Korean TV. So my parents had Korean satellite, and the news that they watched was not the local news or
Was the Korean?
CNN. It was Korean news.
Absolutely. So my family,
Your family
literally,
watched
I don't know, it was like channel 7,652. And it was like the Ecuadorian news. And I was like, why do we care about the Ecuadorian news? We live in New Hampshire.
Oh,
And they did. They watched it every single time.
I thought you were saying your family watched Korean news.
No.
I would have loved that. I would
I
have
was like, wow.
That's the connection that we
There
have
we
is
go.
Korean
Yeah.
news.
Yeah. I watch Korean news. Go ahead, sorry.
So anyways, they're like, yeah, we just saw something that like the new thing to do is in computers, and I'm like, okay, cool. So that weight was lifted off my shoulders. I did my thing, and let me tell you, that really stuck because that was my end of my second year. So now I had a lot of catching up to do because I was in the School of Engineering. My major was in the School of Business, so I had to take all these business courses, and so I'm sitting here, and so I was a 5-year student. I don't have a problem with admitting that because, I had a major shift with totally different schools. It's one thing if it was within the same school, right? But
Major shift. That's what we're going to call it.
I just calls it dropping out and getting back in.
I called mine a 5-year plan, and I was just trying to figure shit out.
Right.
Yeah. But sure, you're always way better.
Wait till you hear my story. Oh, you never will.
Well, you're episode 6B, so don't worry.
You're stuck in Atlanta for 2 weeks.
I'll come back in April.
Oh,
okay. Is that okay?
so. And I'll come back too. I got to do my other part.
You can't. How many times are you going to come back to something? Come on, Han. Let's go.
Oh, goodness gracious. I really should have thought this through a little bit better, I think.
No, you're nailing it. Continue.
So-
We're through college now.
So
We're not through college, sorry.
well, we can fast forward. I graduated, all right, in 5 years.
Yes.
I got my degree.
And now you work at Mead Hunt.
Yes.
Congratulations. We're there. That's awesome. Great story, Han.
I love it though.
Oh, so anyways, I got my first job in New York City.
Okay.
I had a connection through my cousin, and so I moved to Hoboken, New Jersey, and
Great
and,
pizza over there, by the way.
What's that?
Great pizza in Hoboken.
Yeah, there's a
New
lot of good
Jersey?
stuff.
Yeah.
But so the time that I moved there, they were just starting to gentrify. So like the first off of Washington Ave is where it was kind of like all the stuff was, and then I went back recently. Gosh, like I could not believe how everything is developed now. But so anyways,
I feel like this story took so long, it redeveloped again.
There are neighborhoods that are being rebuilt right now.
All right, gentlemen, he's almost done.
Oh,
I'm
no,
actually
he's not.
not.
No, he's not.
There's like 6 more questions, huh?
Boy, how can I give Cliff Notes with? Well, okay. So anyways, first job.
Yeah.
And I was eagerly waiting for my first day. From Hoboken, I scoped out how I need to get to work and everything. So like I hop on the PATH train, I get on the New York City subway, and then get to my office. And I'll never forget my first day on the job. So, here I am, a Pennsylvania boy, maybe not as polite as you guys in the South, but so I opened the door.
When is Pennsylvania ever polite?
Oh man, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're talking about Philly. Where I came from, we were quite polite.
I don't know.
So
I
he
think I
just
lump
took-
all of that into garbage. Well,
I know. Well, what I was gonna say is that I usually give a lot of detail, but I think I met my match. I mean, he jumped on the M train to the J train, off the J train, crossed 125th, and yeah, I had to watch out for the airmen as I crossed the street.
I remember it was a warm day.
Yeah, it was a warm day,
73,
absolutely.
74 degrees.
You know what? I think the Yankees were playing a day game.
Absolutely.
Come on, you guys don't remember your first day in the real world, to the T? I mean,
No.
No.
oh, wow.
I-
So,
Remember my first day.
We won't hear about it.
Jarrett already forgot his walking into the studio.
Yes. Episode 7, you'll be able to hear that. One time's done with his formative years.
Are you 3 more minutes?
oh man, yeah.
This is awesome.
This is great.
This is
It's
awesome.
not great.
It's
You're
what-
losing subscribers.
No, it's wonderful. It's a great story.
So I get to my office and I open up the door.
Yeah.
And I want to be polite, I'm holding the door open. Literally, people just start walking through
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
don't stop.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, is anyone going to take over or let me go through? And so then at this point, I'm like, if I don't let go of this door, I'm going to be here
Absolutely.
forever.
Yeah.
So I just let it go.
It was your fault for opening the door. And
You're
holding
right,
it
it totally was. And so
Yep.
these are things that I learned that you don't do in New York
Yeah,
City.
absolutely
Open
not.
the door for people and hold
No.
it for them.
That's such
No.
a Yankee perspective.
No. I mean,
You
We
hold
don't
it.
do that. In Georgia, Mississippi, you always
Yeah.
open the door.
We absolutely.
Always.
100%.
In Tennessee, always open the door.
Not during the morning rush, though.
Okay.
You don't want to do
they
that.
don't have a morning rush.
Oh, okay. You're saying it's a rush all day, basically?
No, they don't have a rush period.
We don't have a rush. No, because we don't have to have a rush.
No, we're calm. We're chill. Life's smooth, y'all. Life's real smooth.
That's right.
Like this story. This is a smooth story.
We said smooth, not long.
Yeah.
This is,
So this is where I realized I was part of the rat race. I'm like, oh man,
Wow.
this is everyday life. Like this is what I'm going to be doing every
The
day.
J train to the 125th train didn't get to you, jamming yourself into like a pet rat in there, but sure.
I'm more out of my bourbon now.
So anyways, I did that for a while. Worked in New York City. I really enjoyed it because it's New York City. Like, how
Absolutely.
can you not? First job out of college,
Totally.
working in the city
Absolutely.
and all this other stuff. And so I had a blast doing that. And then I don't know if this is a touchy subject, but I was there. 9/11 happened basically.
Right.
And so while I was there, my brother had just gotten a job. He had
goodness.
literally just started working for JP Morgan. He was going through orientation and stuff.
Wow.
I had my cousin there who I mentioned, and so there was a bunch of family there. And I just remember a lot of our family members like, "You guys really want to stay there after all this happened?" And so we all were like, "Yeah, we do want to stay." I mean, like, of course, why would we leave at this point in time? I mean, it doesn't make sense to do that. So we stayed, and but my parents kept pushing, and they were just like, they're like, it's the city, it's the big city. What if it happens again and stuff like that? And so eventually, because of the whole rat race thing, all this, I'm like, you know what? I was like, if I want to do the things that I want to do and make the money I want to make, especially in New York City, the only way to do it is really, I mean, my personal opinion, from what I knew, was
Sorry.
Or that J train.
astronaut joining the
Which part?
Space Force. No, that was pre-Space Force.
I mean, by the 10th grade, he's had 7 years.
It is pretty impressive.
Oh,
That's the
goodness.
Southern and Tracy there.
This.
I'm nice, y'all.
I can
You
see
are
the
very-
regret
you are
in
very
Tracy and
nice.
Patrick's
You are very
face for
nice.
inviting Han.
So that leads into, because it's funny because I actually do have something in common with you other than taking the J train.
An astronaut.
An astronaut is that I always thought that I wanted to work for a large corporation, living that life, and then I quickly realized that I didn't want to do that. That just was not in what I wanted to do, and I think a big part of that was because in a lot of those larger firms, and not every firm, because there's firms out there that treat their employees, with a lot of respect, but it also tends to be very industry focused, right? Financials, these things, you're come and go. If you're not producing, you're gone. The next one comes in and does it, right? Because everyone's trying to prove themselves, right? And I think you were onto something where you were saying, you opened the door after standing there for 25 minutes, holding the door for no reason.
It was 5.
But you had that, that you almost got that epiphany where you're like, is this really what I want to do? Is this really where I want to be, right? I'm not sure coming your story, but I think that's what you were getting to, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you look at that, you almost like self-reflection, and you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be in this rat race. I don't want to be on this train and walking across the street and all this other commotion and the cost of living and all this other things.
You're lost in the crowd. You're not making a difference.
Absolutely.
Right? I think everybody has that point in their career. It's like, wow, is this me? Is this what I want to be? And I had that in my career as well. So interesting.
That's episode 8.
Yeah, that's right.
To that part of it. But Han, you bring up a really good point there, because a lot of people almost have to experience that, right? To see that as you are growing in your career, growing in your profession, growing as an individual, right? Everybody wants to land this massive job at this major corporation, and you're on the 87th floor of this skyscraper overlooking New York City, but then you realize that you're only employee number 555. That's it. That's all you are. No matter how much you produce, you're only judging on what you don't produce, and that's the end of it, right?
The reality is that you impact the people that are immediately around you.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating.
I mean, from the sound of that entire story, I don't know if you got this, Jarrett, but I got figured out he was just a door guy.
It feels like that.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while. But I guess I do have one more part that I would like to see, if you can just touch on, because I would like to see how you made that connection from when you graduated to where you are now. Because I know you did some consulting stuff on your own, you branched on your own. But now, how did that bring you back to where you are today?
Yes, because I know we don't have much time left, and good for you.
Now we're
trying
time aware.
Thank you, Patrick, for that question. And I will shoot you, because you bring up a lot of good points. Because let me see if I can, without going through, and I always like to give my stories and my life experiences, because I feel like you have to go through a lot of those things to kind of to understand yourself, to learn things, what are good decisions, bad decisions, all those other things. And so for me, trying to start from the very beginning to where I'm now is kind of explaining how I've grown over the years.
Sure.
And I've done all kinds of things to and it was funny, because it's not like I had a roadmap. It's not like I purposely did all these things. And honestly, I think there was a lot of just kind of luck involved in the things that I did, the things that I've learned and experienced and things like that. However, but it was based on a constant build, right? Like my parents taught me some things, and I met other people along the way. I learned from other coworkers. I had mentors and things like that, and so learning all those things, and it was just kind of combining all those experiences and that stuff to get to where I am at this point in time. So the things that my parents taught me, just try everything, right? I mean, if you want to do that, do it. If you don't like it, that's fine. But you should try all the things that you want to try, right? And so and then with that, you'll make mistakes along the way, and I feel like that's a very important thing, because boy, making mistakes to me is a very big thing in growth, because you don't make mistakes, you don't know where you can improve upon things, and
if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. You're not pushing yourself out there.
Boy, so this is definitely a whole other podcast episode, and I didn't even tell you my whole self-help
All right, we'll get there.
I'm not even going to
Jarrett asked you to introduce himself.
Tracy and Patrick have made some mistakes, and that's inviting us on the podcast, and they're learning from that, I'm sure. So,
but,
Continue.
You're free to go. I mean,
Continue.
Well, not Jared's about to run out of the room.
and so my story is, thank you all for joining the Layover
But
podcast.
I think, you hit a lot of valid points, because we, in our previous episodes and just conversations in general, the way we kind of do things is, Tracy's leadership and her management style kind of, aligns with that. I can tell you how many times something just gets me going, and she always has the thing is we're going to let him figure it out and then come back. And she loves when I say, all right, you're right, Like this is the process
That's
we're
my
gonna
favorite
go.
sentence in the world when someone says, Tracy, you're right. I let it happen, guys. Don't worry, I don't push it.
I mean, it
when
would
it
be,
comes back.
Christmas is my favorite holiday because it only happens once a year. So you see what I'm putting down? Yeah, exactly. So, but no, I think a big part of it is like, you're right. You learn from your mistakes, and we don't believe in failures.
Yeah.
Failures are just opportunities to be about, right? And these are things that, as you go through life, you're gonna have challenges, both professionally and in your personal life. And it sounds like you had a shit ton of
well, I think
challenges
your
being an
growth.
astronaut and
Yeah.
then switching.
Well, your growth has been amazing, right? You've learned from a kid how to run businesses, every aspect of a business, right? And then you learned who you are, what you want, which is different than what your parents wanted. And that's a tough thing to come across, right? You
That
know, to stand up.
was, yes, because as the oldest,
Yeah.
as I
Yeah.
said, that I had certain expectations, and people expect me to do a lot of different things that
Right.
I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make me happy, basically. But once I finally got over all that and got to the part that I basically wanted to do, it finally got me going down the right path, basically.
Yeah.
And when I say path, my path was not straight. I mean, I had
It was long as shit. I can see that. Jerry, I don't know. I think that path was a circle.
I think it was
Well-
many miles.
Yeah.
But
Jeez.
it'd be safe to say that, like, thank you so much for the story because it's inspirational for everybody, right? For them to hear the whole growth of like where you started to where you are. And I know, Jarrett, you've had, I don't want to say similar because I don't know your story, but I can assume you've
I can tell his story. It's not 50 minutes long.
Yeah, I have 48
Jarrett's
seconds.
like,
So.
we're gonna have a part two, guys.
Absolutely, and that's the best part of this. And for our viewers, we definitely are gonna. This is a very. I like to call you guys yin and yang. By the way,
Yes.
I said that because you guys really
You do balance
work
each
well
other.
together.
Yeah.
You balance each other out. And so there's definitely multiple episodes. I'm sure you guys will be guests again and again and again. We can't ever do a live event because we'll run out of streaming time.
So I was like, welcome to
But-
Han
but-
Podcast.
To Tracy's point, I think you starting from the beginning,
It's beautiful.
it is
really
beautiful to get an understanding of what that will look like. Pause it for 1 second there. You want to hit that pause button on that because that's going to go off. A second. They can edit this part out.
Yep, go ahead.
You know Han took the whole time. All right, Mike, we could I'll
You're
restart
fine,
here
you're
so
fine.
CJ knows to cut the edit here. But I think going back to what I was saying is understanding your entire history, right? From when you started to finish, right? All of us, no matter if you're first generation immigrant, second generation, or if you're born here, we all learn from our parents, and our parents all taught us a level of discipline, a level of education, knowledge. They try to transfer everything they learned as a child onto you, right? And continue on that family line. When I hear your story, I connect to it a lot because in our family, it was the same exact way. It was education, hard work, everything else. I could go out right now when I was a kid and I don't know, kick a soccer ball through a window, right? And my parents would be like, oh, no problem. I'll probably get my ass beaten, but it wouldn't be such a big deal. But if I got an F, or our teacher called, or the school called, it was the end of the world. I actually thought about just running away because it was that intense, right? Because education for us is very important. That's how we were going to break the cycle. That's how we were going to live that American dream, right? We needed to work very hard to get to that point. So when I hear your story, you're talking about going to school, then having to go work at the store, working all the hours you did, and then as you're learning these things, you don't realize that your parents are planting seeds in you the entire way. I think your seeds took a very long ass time to get to.
Well, from a podcast,
The
yeah.
fucking redwood
But-
tree over here.
Yeah. He's in the Mirror Woods in North San Francisco. But everything you said resonates because
so true.
it's who you are. And I will say this, I will say the time that I've known you, you've always been a person that showed a lot of respect to everyone that's around you. And you hold yourself with so much profession.
Mhm.
And I've been with you in very different scenarios.
So
And
very
even then,
not.
but even then, you've always showed everyone around you in your surroundings, the people you're with, and the people that even are not part of your group, a level of respect that shows that that's part of who you are. That's not something that you are just trying to be or learn. That is actually embedded into your
It's in your core.
Absolutely. And so I speak very highly of you as you being part of this podcast. And Jarrett, sorry, Jarrett.
We're about to get
You're
to
the
you.
feature.
Was I a part of
Yeah,
it?
you're about to be
I'm sorry.
But honestly, Han, I think that as we go through, have you on, I don't know, hopefully a couple of episodes going on to the rest of your story. I do believe that all of that stuff that you shared with me relates to a lot of
Yeah.
people, our listeners, right? You know,
Absolutely.
especially to some of our other entrepreneurs that we have.
And I'm super curious. So, Jarrett, you've been very quiet. So why
We're
don't
actually turning on this mic. We have to tune it.
but tell, and thank you, Han, so much for your story because it is incredible. It's an incredible story. And so, Jarrett, what is your story?
Well, we're gonna pause there for 1 second. So that's the end of the episode
Okay.
because now it has to end. So.
Yeah. Han Pak episode.
So before we end it,
Okay.
because CJ's gonna do it.
Yeah.
Mike's like, is there a rope around here? So I
No,
can
we're good. You can keep it going, Daddy. How are we? Is it still recording?
So CJ knows to edit this part out,
Yeah.
but you need to announce what's coming in the next episode
Okay.
of part 1. So episode 3, part 2.
We can do that at the beginning of the next one and just.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the end of it. Done.
No, but
Can we have a
actually,
little more bourbon before
Yes,
we get
it's right
into?
there behind no, but your story is actually really interesting. It
Really?
shows. It really
Yeah.
is. It shows like, how you became who you are. And I think.
No bullshit. We need ice.
Yeah, I got you.
No, because the story took so long.
Like, do y'all need snacks? I mean, I don't know.
You know what? When I needed to figure out
Jared
a way.
drank the whole bottle.
Shh. I needed to figure out a way to shorten that because the second part, the part I'll tell you is the foundation of what made.
We're not doing that again. We're not going through that again. Okay.
Come on, I've got a lot of other good stories to tell.
That wasn't a good story. Okay.
No, that was awesome. I didn't know that you're technically you're first generation.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So, obviously, as you know, coming from like a cultured family, it's like there's high expectations, right?
Yeah.
It's like you've got to make it, and my parents also have to prove that to everybody else that their decision to move to the U.S. was right?
Mhm.
So, and my gosh, like it puts a lot of pressure on the kids to be successful and all this
Mhm.
stuff, and
No, I mean,
and my goodness, it's.
you know, I went through a phase where my parents wanted me to join the military, and I was like, Dad, like nothing about me says fucking military. Like I read fucking.
Yeah, but you know what though? So for Koreans that did that, none of them. There's a lot that didn't belong, but that was